I'd like to make a few remarks myself, and to follow this the thread of the discussion here. I'm being cursed. You just compressed my images horribly on the horizontal axis. But okay, I'll take that. Let's go back about 2 weeks ago. Most of you have heard the incident. A technical writer in San Francisco walked into a bar. I know it sounds like a joke, but no. She was wearing the Google Glass, and it caused a disruption. A lot of the patrons were quite agitated. They took it off of her. She ran out of the bar. She came back. Her things were gone. It was a big, very disruptive situation, and then got picked up by the press, nationally and internationally. So continues to reverberate. In fact, the new development just yesterday was that a number of bars are now banning Google Glass from their premises. And I really am interested in Google Glass. I think it's bringing together a lot of these issues in a very, very specific way, and it relates to something I want to tell you about. But I think this is also very ripe. The glass is really ripe for humor and activism. This is just one example. I think if you've seen the Saturday Night Live skit on Google Glass, it's phenomenal. But this idea of artists intervening in this subject has a long history. Vito Acconci, for example, Following Peace, is one example. I just want to go through, of course, Julia's wonderful body of work. Steve Mann deserves mention here, especially with regard to his role in the early formation of Google Glass. The surveillance camera players, based out of New York. My colleague Marie Sester. This is that's Raphael Lozano-Hammer's work. Marie Sester's work that was also at San Francisco MoMA. And so collected, I want to recommend this wonderful book with about 20 or 30 artists and writers on addressing the issues of the aesthetics of surveillance. I have pursued a project myself, and my group did a couple years ago with the Whitney Museum as a commission, and it was called Demonstrate. The idea was that we took a camera at the time. This was in the 40th anniversary of the free speech movement here on campus, and we put a camera in one of the new categories of cameras that was just emerging in the Bush era. Post 9/11, we got this new camera and put it over the Sproul Plaza. And then we set it up. So as an intervention, you can see it's very, very small, and it's about the size of a grapefruit. It's almost invisible from the ground floor. We set it up as an intervention so that people over the internet could come in and essentially participate in the role of surveillance agents. The idea, this is actually from 1964. That's the fountain that's out on Sproul Plaza. It's still there today. This is how it looked from our camera. There was a number of features. I won't go into all the details on this. The camera could be moved, pan, tilted, and zoomed. This gives you some idea of the power of the camera. You could zoom in quite closely. Now again, this is just an off-the-shelf commercial camera. It sold for about $1,000 then. I think it's a lot less expensive now. And one thing to keep in mind is that these cameras are not going away. They benefit from the same technology as microprocessors. They follow Moore's law. They will become smaller, less expensive, and more powerful over time. So they're going to be ubiquitous. In this case, we added another twist to this where people could take photographs and then tag them and label them. So it became quite provocative. I got called into the principal's office for this project, and we were asked to reduce the magnification on the camera. And there's quite a bit more on this story I'll tell you about. But it did lead us to actually a new research project. We started thinking about the idea of what we called respectful cameras. And so we developed a technology that if you wore a particular colored marker, that then the camera would detect that and then cover your face, would obscure your face. So you could opt out of being surveilled. And then we realized this was related to Baldessari's wonderful series. So we developed a video, an analog of Baldessari, where you could, as people walked around, the bubble would essentially follow them around. Now, we've also more recently been developing a tool. Remember, it's important to keep in mind that these tools are not only tools for oppression, but it can be used for resistance. And this has come up a number of times today. We've been developing something that we call the Rashomon Project. And this was inspired actually by the pepper spray incident at Davis. And we've been Aphid Stern, who's here, and thank you, Aphid, and we've been working with Camille Crittenden and a number of others on this, and the idea has been to develop a tool that collects a number of citizen recordings of an incident, like the pepper spray incident, and then displays them simultaneously on a common timeline. So it assists in the idea of digesting all of these varied sources of information. John Scott has also been very active on this project. Thank you, John. Now, the last thing I want to say is a new theory I have. I want to run it past you all, and it's still under development, but it has to do with Freud's concept of the Unheimlich. And for those who, I won't go into details on it, but it's really very closely related to déjà vu. They're both cases where there's a cognitive dissonance between the familiar and the strange. The Unheimlich, in a sense, is the dual of déjà vu. And this has been translated, I think, somewhat imperfectly as the uncanny in English. Strangely, that uncanny is related to Ken, which is weird. But what it comes down to is that Freud, in his 1916 essay, talks about this idea that it's related to repression, and when something that has been repressed is exposed, it creates this very gross sense of discomfort. And it's when something hidden is unintentionally revealed. So it's related to issues of the sense of being watched. Freud talks about this, that there's the sense of a discomfort when you're not sure if you're being watched, which is very much the hidden observer, the kinds of cameras we're talking about today. What's also interesting is, though, the uncanny is often referenced in the context of prosthetics and robotics. So the idea of something that you're not sure if it's human or not. So the uncanny valley. You may be recognized some of this work in robotics with the what's called geminoids. These are some researchers, Ishiguro in the center, who create these lifelike replicas of themselves. Very complex project, and so there's a sense of this sort of this almost physiological reaction to these experiments, and this brings us back, I believe, to the Google Glass, because Google Glass really brings together these two different senses of the uncanny. It raises the specter of the panopticon, of being surveilled, and the issues, the sort of physiological reactions to the prosthetic. And so that someone who is not clear to what is their status. Are they real, or are they is this some kind of android? So I think that when putting the camera on the eyes, intersecting it with the gaze, this creates a particular cognitive dissonance, a particularly strong reaction that we're experiencing, and that is I think going to become going to take a longer period of adjustment than many other technologies. So I think there's a deep relationship between the uncanny, between surveillance and robotics and the design. How can we design such a thing as to be less uncanny? And in the meantime, how can we take this up as an artistic material for artistic practice? Thank you.